I'm not here to say that the relationship between Harry Styles and Taylor Swift was definitely PR, but I have questions. And let me be clear, I am not someone who goes around calling relationships PR willy-nilly. As far as Taylor Swift goes, I think most of her public relationships, even though some of them are sometimes leveraged for mutual positive PR, are 100% real. You are not going to see me calling this fake or this fake, and even this, I know for a fact, was 100% legit. But Haylor gives me pause, and no, it's not because of this blind item, though it did come true, and I'm sure that's compelling evidence to some of you. Members of What I Will Say Nation know that the tagline of this show is evidence-based gossip. And blind items, though entertaining, are usually not rooted in evidence. But you know what does make good evidence?
Receipts! Proof! Timeline!
A lot of the Haylor timeline and Taylor's own words on the subject don't seem to match up with reality. For example, Taylor did everything in her power to tie the song I Knew Your Trouble back to Harry Styles, even though she wrote it before she met him. I'll go over that in more detail soon, but first I want to say, if you love the Haylor ship, if you are a child of divorce and they're your mom and dad, I am not here to belittle or demean you. Sometimes when people call relationships PR or fake, it comes with all this mean-spirited BS. I'm not here to shame Taylor for maybe leveraging a little PR out of this relationship. Frankly, at the end of the day, I don't know Taylor Swift or Harry Styles. They might have really dated. So I'm not here to make fun of them or anyone who believes they dated, because for all I know, they did. And if you ship them, I want you to ship your ship and have fun. But if you're a little messy like I am, and you like a little messy gossip and tea, and you're open to the idea that Taylor Swift has maybe done a little PR embellishment of her life at times, please stay tuned. You are going to find this video very interesting because the list of sus things about this relationship is very weird, very compelling, and we're about to go over all of it in detail. Let's get right into it. Let's go back to the beginning. Harry and Taylor allegedly met back in 2012 on March 31st at the Kids' Choice Awards. Harry performed with One Direction and Taylor danced along in the crowd. How do we know this? Well, because Haylor was debuted to the world via Justin Bieber talking to gossip magazines about it. Here's one gossip magazine. A source told the Daily Mirror newspaper, Taylor is a huge One Direction fan and was excitedly bopping along to the boys when they performed on stage. Then she was chatting to Justin about how hot she found Harry. Taylor went backstage and was hanging around by the group's dressing room and said a quick hello to the guys. She started dramatically fanning herself afterwards, making out like she was overwhelmed, which got everyone laughing. She really likes Harry, but made Justin promise not to go on record about it. Yes, the same Justin Bieber who Taylor Swift has hated for an eternity. I mean, just look at this.
What are your thoughts on Justin when he laughs so young?
Can we have another question?
And this is from the same night. Look at the face Taylor pulls when Selena embraces Justin.
Ugh.
I mean, come on. You think she's sitting around telling Justin Bieber her deepest secrets? But never mind that Taylor gushed to known enemy Justin Bieber about how much she loved Harry. Justin continues the Haylor rumors when he allegedly tells The Mirror that one of his massively famous mates fancies Harry Styles. I already know one of the biggest artists in the world thinks Harry is so hot, but I have been sworn to secrecy. What is this? Why is Justin Bieber talking to every gossip magazine that will listen to him that Taylor is in love with Harry? Why is he such a huge part of the soft launch of this relationship? He's been sworn to secrecy by Taylor, but he'll talk to any gossip magazine about it. It just seems juvenile. It reads like badly written fanfic. So in this first iteration of Haylor, very little happens. Taylor and Harry allegedly meet at the Kids' Choice Awards. Justin blabs to tabloids. They hang out for a week or so, including going to a pool party at Justin Bieber's house, although there is no pictures of this event. And then Harry leaves with One Direction to go to New York to be on SNL, and Taylor allegedly follows behind him the next day. They were never spotted together in New York, even though people were on the lookout for them. I'm not saying they weren't there together. I'm just saying there's no hard evidence that they did spend any time together there. After that, Harry goes off to Australia and New Zealand, and Taylor returns to LA. Then a couple weeks later, on April 25th, we already have Haylor breaking up because allegedly Taylor sees pat pics of Harry making out with some girl. And that's fair enough, right? If Taylor and Harry are really dating, he shouldn't be kissing other women, and there are pictures of him kissing a friend goodbye after hanging out with her. But the problem is Taylor's big reason for this breakup is that Harry cheated on her with this woman. And I guess maybe it's possible she thought he did. But the weird thing about this is Emma Ostley really was just a friend of Harry's, and she even had a boyfriend at the time. Now that doesn't mean nothing went on but this idea that Harry cheated on Taylor with this model doesn't 100% seem supported by hard fact. This all seems a little contrived, especially when we get to Taylor's side of the story later. So they met on March 31st, it's April 25th, 3 weeks later, they're already broken up. Taylor goes on to allegedly get with young Connor Kennedy, which is another relationship that I'm not necessarily here to call fake, but it was certainly weird since she was 22 and he was still in high school at the time. According to the Kennedys' publicist, Taylor and Connor were still totally in love on October 10th of 2012. But the weird thing is, she and Harry reconnected on September 6th of 2012 at a sushi restaurant with Ed Sheeran. So I'm not saying they definitely got back together at this September 6th hangout, but it does seem like she reconnected with him there while she still had this other boyfriend, Connor Kennedy. Now, of course, it's possible she cheated on Connor with Harry. However, that seems kind of unlikely because the Kennedys honored her with an award in December of 2012 after all of this had gone down. And you'd think if she had cheated on Connor Kennedy with Harry Styles, they wouldn't have been welcoming her with open arms to this award ceremony. Now, of course, you can reconnect with someone without cheating, but it just feels like she's talking to her ex-boyfriend while she still has her new boyfriend. She breaks up with that boyfriend, goes on to get back with that ex-boyfriend, and it just seems like, I don't know, why would the Kennedys be so thrilled with her after she kind of clowned Connor like that? According to the Lover Diaries, Taylor writes This Love on October 17th of 2012, and this is supposed to be about Harry coming back to her, and it's a really gentle, sweet, loving song. But according to the Kennedys' publicist, she and Connor were totally in love on October 10th of 2012. This does not make sense. Something's not adding up. I'm not saying these are all PR relationships, but I am saying that somewhere something is not adding up. Then, a few days later, on October 22nd, the Red album comes out, and some of this nonsense is about to start making sense because all these gossip outlets and real outlets start running articles about, hey, did you guys know that Harry and Taylor actually dated last spring, and some of the songs on Red are probably about Harry. Of course, we all know here that Taylor early in her career unlocked a great formula: live life, write great songs spilling tea about said life, and profit. And let's remember, Taylor took some risks on the Red album. She had 3 pure pop songs on that album, and we know she was already eyeing a jump to pop full-time, a leap that she quickly took after this on the 1989 album. And what's a better way to intrigue pop listeners than to spill tea on their favorite main pop boy? Well, the problem is that most songs on Red were written before she met Harry, and even the ones that she wrote after she met him, their timelines still don't really add up to be about him. So let's get into this. Let me take you through the bizarre way that Taylor treated the song I Knew You Were Trouble. Taylor said she started writing I Knew You Were Trouble 6 months before she met with Max Martin to write for the first time.
I Knew You Were Trouble was an idea that I got almost 6 months before I was scheduled to write with Max Martin, and I emailed him and said, I just got this idea. I can't wait to bring it to you. I know that we're not writing for a few months, but I need you to know I thought of this thing. I can't wait for you to hear it.
Thanks to the Lover Diaries, we know that she met with Max Martin for the first time on June 10th, 2012. So 6 months before this would be early December of 2012. And if we want to give her some grace and say she misremembered by a month or 2 or even 3, that still doesn't leave enough time for her to have met Harry. Remember, she met him on March 31st of 2012. And they don't break up till April 25th. So that's less than 2 months before she worked with Max Martin. So there's no way that I Knew You Were Trouble was written about her first breakup with Harry Styles. So why did she leave a Thanksgiving feast worth of breadcrumbs for fans, leading them to speculate that the song was about Harry? Breadcrumb number 1, the liner note is When You Saw Me Dancing, which is supposed to invoke when she first danced to What Makes You Beautiful at the Kids' Choice Awards. Breadcrumb number 2, she had the actor who played opposite her in the I Knew You Were Trouble music video have tattoos that matched Harry's. He had love on his chest just like Harry has, and he also had a ship tattoo on his arm just like Harry has. But here's the freaking crazy thing about the ship. The music video for I Knew You Were Trouble was filmed before Harry got that ship tattoo. Harry got that ship tattoo a week or 2 after the music video was filmed, and Taylor went with Harry to get the ship tattoo. So there's a few possibilities here. Of course, it's possible that it was a coincidence, but also maybe Taylor encouraged Harry to get the ship tattoo because it was going to be in the music video, or maybe she knew he was planning on getting a tattoo soon and she knew it was going to be a ship, so she put it on the actor. Now for this, I know we're headed towards tinfoil hat territory, so like I said, it could just be a coincidence. Another breadcrumb breadcrumb she left is that she tweeted a line from the song the day after they broke up, making people speculate that yes, it's about him. But forget all these stupid breadcrumbs. She said herself that it was about him. After she performed at the Brits in 2013, she gave this interview to UK's Sunday Times magazine, and when asked if it was difficult to perform the song, she said, "Well, it's not hard to access that emotion when the person the song is directed at is standing by the side of the stage watching." And Harry was her only ex-boyfriend at that show, so she's basically saying it's about him. But Taylor, you started writing this song before you even met him. Now, who do I think I Knew Your Trouble is about? Probably Martin Johnson. There is deep lore that they secretly dated back in the day, and I'm probably going to have to do a video on that someday, so make sure and subscribe if you want to see that. That is definitely a lesser known Taylor romance that I find fascinating. But anyway, this series of events is so weird because by the time Taylor was filming the I Knew Your Trouble music video in fall of 2012, she and Harry were dating again already. They got back together sometime in October, like we already said, and she filmed the music video in November. My thing is, let's give Taylor the benefit of the doubt and say that she misremembered when she wrote the song. So maybe it really is about Harry. How weird is it that if she's in this new relationship with him again, and they're really happy together this time, and it's actually working out, isn't it kind of weird for her to paint this song to be about him while they're on such good terms? This is crazy. It just doesn't make sense that they're supposed to be so happy, yet she's going to the ends of the earth, including seeing into the future as to what tattoo Harry's gonna get, to make everyone think that this song that is really scathing and really harsh is about him. It just doesn't make sense if they're supposed to be in this very real, loving, happy relationship at this point in time. Anyway, Haylor 2.0 goes from sometime in October of 2012 and it ends on January 3rd, 2013. And I do want to say there are some things here that come off as kind of genuine. They go on vacations together. Harry takes Taylor to England to meet his family. She spends her 23rd birthday with him. They celebrate together. This comes off as less contrived than some of the other things that have happened in this relationship. They really are traveling together. They really are spending time together. And in a very technical, literal way, they are going on dates. So they are technically like truly dating. So I'm not saying there was no feelings, there was no romance, there was no time spent together. Obviously, it's a public record that there was time together, but this all still feels like something a publicist dreamed up. And speaking of things that publicists dreamed up, let's talk about the cringy Haylor New Year's kiss. So on December 31st of 2012, Taylor performed at Dick Clark's Rockin' New Year's Eve in Times Square, and Harry went to Brooklyn to see a Coldplay and Jay-Z concert. A lot of people claim that this proves that Harry skipped Taylor's performance, but receipts I found suggest that Taylor performed later in the night around 11:40 p.m. and Harry was there for midnight so they could kiss at midnight when the ball went down. So I do think Harry probably did make it back in time for her performance, but they didn't spend the whole night together. A lot of people say Harry wasn't there at all. That's not true. He definitely showed up at some point. So this isn't some big gotcha, but let me just say, please behold this kiss for yourselves. It is so cringy and awkward. And the weirdest thing about this is that Austin Swift, Taylor's little brother, is right down there in the crowd with them, filming them at point blank range. Why? I don't know. I don't know why, but he is. And I find that super weird. Like, I don't even think it proves it was a PR relationship or anything. It's just strange. The kiss itself has the chemistry of middle schoolers at their first school dance. And while I'm not big into body language analysis, I think that stuff is silly pseudoscience, I think we can all agree that just at a glance, the kiss seems super awkward. And perhaps Harry and Taylor agreed because they broke up a mere 4 days later. Taylor will go on to do a bunch of petty things for a while, including mocking Harry's accent at the Grammys a few weeks later, which is interesting because once she started giving interviews for 1989, her tune changed, and actually it was no one's fault, and me and Harry are friends now. And yeah, it's possible she was bad for a while and then they made up and became friends, but it's just interesting to see how the narrative shifts over time for her. But before this narrative shift, while she was still being petty, Taylor does one of the craziest things that I think she has ever done. For some reason, she felt the need to give a timeline and details of her relationship to Vanity Fair magazine. So this is a great read. I suggest everybody check it out. It's called Taylor Swift's Telltale Heart, and Taylor goes into a lot of different things. Some of her early takes on like misogyny and feminism are in here. So I recommend everybody read it, but here's the crazy part. At one point, the interviewer says. And I've got to read all this, so let's roll some B-roll of Haylor fan art because I've already showed you the 7 pictures we have of them together. She won't go into personal details about any of her relationships. It's one of her rules, but she does authorize someone who knows her well to discuss them with me. The fact that this information, once the purview of 17 and Tiger Beat, now counts as actual news is perplexing, but here we go. So I don't know who this friend is, or maybe it's just Taylor's publicist. It's hard to say. The friend allegedly says that the Styles situation is completely misrepresented in the media. This young woman claimed that Styles quote unquote chased Swift for a year. Quote, he wore her down. And then last spring she said there was a weekend where they got really close and he was all like, you're amazing. I want to be with you. I want to do this. Soon after that, when Styles was on tour in Australia with One Direction, he allegedly texted Swift to alert her to a picture of himself on the internet, quote, kissing a friend goodbye, but said it's no big deal. When Swift searched online for the picture, however, she found that they were making out, like with their hands all up in each other's hair. This says that Harry chased Taylor for a year, so that would be like, I guess, the year of 2011 before they got together. But the problem is, as far as we know, they had never met. They had barely ever been in the same place, and Harry was 17 at the time. He was also involved with other women at the time. This just doesn't add up with reality. They met for the first time in spring of 2012, as far as we know, and that's what their interviews at the time suggest.
Apparently you've been texting Taylor Swift. True or false?
We met in America, and she's very nice.
And to back me up, the magazine notes that a rep for Styles called all of these claims categorically false. So Harry's team is agreeing with me here. What Taylor or her friend or her team is saying here is not true. Anyway, the article goes on. Swift ended the relationship, continued her friend, after which Styles allegedly pursued her again for the better part of a year, professing his devotion and promising never to stray again. Quote, so then they got back together, but the whole time she says she feels like he's looking at every girl and thinking about hooking up with every girl. And then when they were in London sometime in the last few months, the boy band Balladeer allegedly, quote, disappears one night, and after that, it was like he just didn't want to keep going. Now, said the friend, he is allegedly texting Swift, quote, again nonstop, like, where are you? Call me. Are you back? So first of all, I want to say this sounds very out of character for Harry. If a relationship was over, I do think Harry would leave his ex alone. He doesn't seem like that kind of pushy, abrasive guy that would push boundaries like that. That's just going on vibes alone. What do I know? But that just does not seem like who Harry Styles is as a person. But secondly, now they're saying this breakup or the first fracture of their relationship happened in London, even though we know very publicly Taylor and Harry broke up in the Virgin Islands. Remember, blue dress on a boat? So like, why is this story changing so much? Why does none of it seem to be rooted in what really happened? Why is she painting him as this bad guy who leads her on, breaks her heart, and then won't leave her alone? Almost in what sort of sounds like an abuse nature. And then later, when it comes to the 1989 press tour, it's all, oh, Harry and I, we're best friends now. The world just tore us apart and it's nobody's fault that we broke up. Actually, he might even interrupt my wedding. And listen, there's a few things that happen after this interview as we head into the 1989 era. They make it seem like, okay, maybe Haylor did have some kind of secret connection going on. Don't get me wrong, there's not much, but for example, Harry wrote a song called I Love You for the duo Alex and Sierra, and it is riddled with Swiftian Easter eggs. It mentions 13 days, and it says, I won't trouble you no more, and it says we're lying on the soft, warm ground, as opposed to now we're lying on the cold, hard ground, like it says in I Knew You Were Trouble. I mean, honestly, it's also heavy-handed that it seems like almost a joke. One thing that's interesting is that Sierra of the duo tweeted a picture of Taylor's cat, making it seem like she had maybe been hanging out with Taylor at Taylor's house. So a lot of people say, oh, Harry was there and they wrote the song all together. Taylor's not listed as a songwriter, so if that happened, Taylor didn't help write the song. But like, there's a little connection. Harry wrote a song for this duo and Taylor maybe hung out with part of the duo. Okay, so maybe they were running in the same social circles. There's also this funny thing that happens when Courtney Cox followed them both on Twitter on the same day and maybe made it seem like they were all hanging out together. This allegedly happened on November 18th of 2013. And here's what Courtney said about the hang later. She said, well, we have a mutual friend and that's Ed Sheeran, who introduced and brought Johnny McDade, who's a recording artist, and Gary Lightbody and Taylor Swift. And I can't remember who else. And Johnny McDade, who's also in this conversation, said, that's about right. And Courtney Cox goes on to say, But they all came over and we had a big music night, and that's where we met. So a lot of people think that since she said maybe there were some other people there too, and she followed both Harry and Taylor on Twitter that day, that Harry was there as well. Like, we don't have photos of him there or anything, but it's a good little investigative thing that Haylor shippers have found out. So maybe there were a few surreptitious Haylor hangouts, and maybe that lends some credibility to thinking, yeah, they really were privately spending time together because they had a real relationship. So it's not like there was nothing compelling about late stage Haylor. But if their relationship is so genuine and real, why does it seem to only exist to promote Taylor as a pop artist? Why are there more songs that Taylor tries to shoehorn Harry in as a muse? Because there's another song she basically point blank said was about him, and it simply can't be. So according to some Swifties that went to the 1989 secret session, Taylor wrote I Wish You Would a couple of months after her and Harry broke up, and they decided to become friends again, and she said this was the first time she had become friends with an ex, to the point where they were comfortable enough to talk about why the relationship didn't work out. She said he told her about how after they broke up, he bought a house literally one road adjacent to hers. Every day he would drive home and accidentally turn into her street. And he told her how he just wanted to stop at her house and see her, but he never did. She said this song is about while he was in the car making the decision to get out of the car and see her, she was sitting in her bedroom wishing he would make the move and just go back to her and just pitch up at her house. First of all, I want to say if they miss each other so much and if nobody did anything wrong and they're actually star-crossed lovers that are total soulmates, what is keeping them apart? Like, why can't this millionaire boy be with this millionaire girl? Who is going to fight so hard to keep them apart? I know there's like fan pressure and PR pressure on the relationships, but that's one thing I had kind of trouble buying into about the Haylor narrative. So what's the problem? I Wish You Would was recorded in the fall of 2013, and Harry did not buy that house in LA that was near Taylor's until the spring of 2014. This is all public record. Now, Harry's a millionaire. Maybe he secretly bought a different house in LA in 2013. I don't know. Maybe that's possible. But as far as we know, the public records we have, Harry did not buy that house until 2014. Also, by the time Harry bought that house, Taylor was about to move to New York City. So this whole story she tells about him driving up to her house while she was there sitting up inside, it just doesn't seem likely unless there's some kind of private information we don't know, which is possible. Clean is another song off 1989 that she seems to want people to think is about Harry Styles, even though the timeline doesn't match up. So let me explain. Taylor said she wrote Clean, quote, "As I was walking out of Liberty in London, someone I used to date, it hit me that I'd been in the same city as him for 2 weeks and I hadn't thought about it." Swift shared. When it did hit me, it was like, oh, I hope he's doing well, and nothing else. So she felt like she had mostly moved on from the relationship, and she felt all this closure, and she wrote the song Clean about it. Great story. And why couldn't it be about Harry, since Harry spent a lot of time in London, and he was probably in London during this time that Taylor's talking about, which, by the way, was February of 2014. Well, the song Clean gives us this timeline. It says 10 months sober, I must admit, just because you're clean don't mean you don't miss it. 10 months before February of 2014 is April of 2013. However, Taylor and Harry broke up in January of 2013. That would be 13 months before she wrote the song Clean. And since 13 is Taylor's special number, don't you think she might want to work 13 into the song? She is famous for being such a good lyricist. So it feels like she could have made the number 13, which again is her special lucky number, work in the song. Furthermore, the late stage Haylor truthers will have you believe that Taylor and Harry were hanging out all during this time. For example, the Courtney Cox hangout that allegedly happened in November of 2013. So that would be 4 or 5 months before February of 2014. That's not 10 months before. 10 months is April, like I said. So what happened in April? Well, I think Harry was on tour at the time. I think Taylor was too. So I guess it's possible their paths crossed, but we have no public record of that. And remember, if you go by the Haylor timeline, they were still hanging out as late as November of 2013. So this 10 months just doesn't make sense to be about Harry, unless, of course, there's some private information that hasn't been made public, which is, of course, possible. But my question is, why does it never add up? Why does she keep saying all these songs are about Harry, even though, like in the case of I Knew Your Trouble, it was written before she met him, even though I Wish You Would is supposed to be about him buying a house, but he didn't buy that house until after she wrote the song. Like, why does this keep happening? If it's such a genuine relationship, why doesn't she just write genuine songs about the relationship and let them come out as they will? And I'm not even saying she doesn't have some real and genuine songs about him. The song Style, Harry Styles' Style, really seems like it could be about him, right? So like, why doesn't Style just exist? And the other songs can be whoever they're really about. Maybe they're about Jake Gyllenhaal. Maybe they're about someone like Martin Johnson. Maybe there's some secret muse that we don't know about. Why does she insist on shoehorning Harry in as the muse, even though it really seems like he can't be? tea. I want to leave you with two things. The first thing is this Reddit comment, which like it's a Reddit comment. It is probably complete fan fiction. Take it with a huge grain of salt. But for some reason it sticks out to me and I believe it. Maybe I'm delusional. But a Redditor said, I know someone who was friends with Harry circa 2012-2013, and he was telling his friends that Taylor didn't want to sleep with him. All they did was make out and she let him go to second base. They all laughed when her album came out because it was either about someone else or made up. So take that as you will. Now, like I said, it's a Reddit comment. It's probably BS. Okay. But something about it reads as true to me, especially when I combine it with this quote that Harry gave in 2022 on the Howard Stern show.
I think I was probably about 20 and I realized that I hadn't really made any decisions for myself, for my adult life, and the choices I was making that weren't part of a democracy. And it was all kind of choices that dictated what I was going to do and where I was going to go in my life were made as like a vote.
So he's basically saying that other people around him were making decisions for him until he was 20. Now, he started dating Taylor when he was 18. Why does it feel like, yeah, maybe they spent some time together, but it was mostly contrived? It was something their publicist came up with. Like Harry said, it was a democratic decision, maybe even that he dated her, but it was not this epic love story that Taylor talks about on 1989. I'm sorry, I really do believe that. I think it was embellished for PR reasons. I think it was a great vehicle to help Taylor transition fully to pop and to help get One Direction's music become more popular in the States. And by the way, I don't think that makes either of them bad people or anything. People do PR stuff all the time. It is really not that big of a deal. But yeah, when I put all this info, the blind items, the gossip on Reddit, the weird timelines that don't match up, the strange behaviors like that weird kiss in New Year's, and that very telling quote from Harry talking about how he didn't really have control over his life until he was 20, I do just walk away thinking that Haylor was something that was dreamed up in the bowels of an eager publicist's brain. Sure, there's some parts of Haylor that come off as genuine and moving, and maybe I'm completely wrong about all of this, but for the most part, to me personally, it does read as kind of contrived Wattpad fanfic. Like when Taylor tries to force Harry as the muse of I Knew You Were Trouble. That just reads as like One Direction fanfic, like Your Name and Bad Boy Harry. Isn't there a whole book and movie called After that's just basically about Bad Boy Harry Styles? See, I think Taylor was writing a little fanfic too when she writes songs about Harry. Of course, I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on it. If any of you are big time Haylor shippers, is there lore I'm missing? Is there tea? Is there evidence that I haven't taken into consideration? I would actually be happy to do a video from the other perspective saying, no, Haylor was so real, so true, and here's all the evidence for that. If there's something I'm missing here. Like I said, I'm open to all sides on this. So hop in the comments and let me know. But otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, please give it a thumbs up, and make sure and check out my podcast. It's linked in the down bar. The next episode coming out is about celebrities who faked having cancer, so you know it's going to be good. It's going to be full of tea. I've got a special guest coming on for that one. And with all that said, everybody please stay safe in 2025. Make sure to subscribe and gaslight gatekeep girl boss always. Bye everybody.